Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
Hello, this is Brian McWilliams from Electric Libertyland. I am a Patrick Warburton type with less hair and less followers, and my laugh is only outdone in its ingenuineness by Seth Rogen's. This is the show where we talk. That's all I got.
You can't do it, can you? You can't do it.
No,
I don't really hard
know
to do
how
Brian
he keeps
McWilliams
it up.
impression.
Yeah,
I don't know how he does an impression of himself all the time. That's got to be absolutely exhausting. But this is a very special edition of Electric Libertyland that was actually not Brian McWilliams. I know many of you were probably fooled for a bit. It's actually Dan Smotz.
It was
the
very
system
convincing.
is down, subbing in.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me. You've had me on your show. Odie's had me on his show, and now I get to be on Brian's show.
Finally.
Yes,
Finally
thank you,
reaching
Brian.
the pinnacle. This
Thanks.
is even better than being on because it's just like being on the show with Brian minus Brian. So that's
Right.
perfect.
It's
This is
like a
actually the best
win-win.
thing.
You get the audience without the Brian.
And of course, Brian cannot be replaced simply by one man or simply by two men. So we actually have a third here. We actually brought in Lions of Liberty's officially unofficial legal counsel, the man known simply as Rico. Hello.
Hello, day podcasting. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's right.
I was like,
It's day for us. A little behind the scenes. We're actually live for Lions of Liberty patrons, live for our local supporters, our Patreon supporters, and it's about 11 a.m. It's even earlier for me. It's not even noon yet for me. But we are doing a little emergency session of Electric Libertyland live for our patrons, the public. The rest of you are hearing this sometime on Wednesday. I don't know when you listen to the podcast, but Brian McWilliams is or do you guys want to theorize where Brian is before I actually say where Brian is? Anybody have guesses?
well, we saw him. He was moving around quite fine for a person
Looked
on his
fine to me.
deathbed with COVID.
There you go. So Brian McWilliams has a mysterious ailment of some kind that may or may not be COVID, that he may or may not be spreading throughout.
Third
throughout his
bout.
small
We
neighborhood.
shouldn't underestimate or undersell that point. It's his third time with COVID in 10 months, 9 months.
Brian has theorized that he has had COVID several times. This being the third of such times. So either natural immunity is bullshit, or Brian is bullshit.
Has he always been a hypochondriac?
It sounds like a poll.
New.
Well, he's always been. I don't want to talk trash on the man. This is his
Why
own
not?
show. This is
It's
his
his
house.
fault for not
Kind of the
doing
point.
it.
Isn't that the risk you take when you invite people on in your absence because you called in sick when you host a podcast?
I guess that is what happens when you call in sick. You just kind of
He does have
deal with the
a
replacements.
Yeah.
flair for hypochondria. There's never a day that goes by where he's not talking about him being hungover or having the worst headache.
It's
See, I don't know if
never
that's hypochondria because I do believe that's legitimate because he does legitimately drink a ton and is probably legitimately hungover because he's a 40-something-year-old man and can't hang like that anymore, even though he thinks he can. So I don't know if that's hypochondria, but there's a lot of
there's a lot of
being mixed in.
exaggeration tendencies.
So
say.
You toss in constant
he's a drama
hangovers
queen.
with a dash of hypochondria, and then well,
You
here we
get
are.
Brian.
Now you have this show.
Yep. So do we have any news, or are we just going to shit on Brian for an hour and a half?
I was thinking shit on Brian for an hour and a half. An hour and a half.
Down.
I don't know. It's a long time. I don't know if I have that much time
Down.
on me, but
I don't
we
have
could
that much
now.
time, but if it's shitting on Brian, I'll make the exception.
I was telling Dan before we did this show here, which is really sad, but it is actually true. Like, I don't follow news at all. I don't go to news websites. I don't watch news. I don't even have cable or anything. All of my news, and I do mean all of my news, comes from listening to Electric Libertyland and Dan's show, The System is Down, especially when he does the anti-news stuff.
Tragic.
Yeah, which is sad, and you might say my news sources are somewhat biased, but I just trust that they do a lot of reading of news and then filter it through their crazy brains, and then whatever gets to me is what I decide is the truth of the world. That's
Well,
how
we
I filter
don't.
things
We
out.
just kind of make it up, and then you regurgitate what we're making up to other people, and you go out in public.
Sounds like how the mainstream news works too.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you're kind of a journalist.
You just have less CIA on your staff, so
Yeah.
that's the only difference.
Well, the nice thing is, because I'm a member of the Lions of Liberty Pride, because I support now, I'm not a member, I don't have to pay. I get Howie's news links. Everybody that joins our Patreon at $15 a month or higher, not only do you get awesome perks, you get a free mug, you get some discounts, you get tons of bonus content, but at $15 or higher, you actually get Howie Snowden's very, very finely curated daily news links emails. So what we could do, because I mean, it's really insane how he puts together, how he's able to find all this news in rapid manner and send it out in an organized fashion. I don't know how he does it. I don't understand how he does it, but he does it. So we could just scroll through some of these emails, and I could pick some random stories to talk about.
I read through the news links. There's a couple stories that I saw.
I have about 20 articles opened up for my episode tomorrow, so I can pregame and get all the I don't know, the dust worked off in this episode, and then actually do a good news review and coverage tomorrow.
So there was two stories in particular I thought were interesting. One is so Tucker Carlson was showing did you see, guys, the slide that the Army is showing people? It has the Army showing, I guess it's, I don't understand it. There have the 7 tenets of Satanism on the slide that they're showing people in the Army as sort of a pro-vaccine type message. It's very bizarre.
I'm going to need more information on what the hell you're talking about.
Definitely need more information.
Okay.
I do remember seeing that headline and thinking,
slaughtered children, and then said it's because of the vaccine. Like, you're just,
I guess it was sarcastic, but it did have the 7 core tenets of Satanism. If I don't know how to put it on the screen, I'll just text Mark. Maybe he'll figure that out.
Oh, that sounds can't you just make a comment in the comments? I think you can.
Well, it's on my phone, so then it would take a whole thing.
That's transferring to too many devices. That's just not going to work. Not in 2020.
So it says it's like, oh, how many dead babies were sacrificed to make the vaccine, which I guess was in jest, but I don't really understand how that was kind of a selling point. Oh, we're making fun of your reluctance to take the vaccine by putting this up and then showing a picture of the devil and having the tenets from the Church of Satan.
So that's what like they were trying to say, you guys are crazy, and this is proving that you're crazy by showing this thing that makes us look terrible.
Yes, but on the pro side, apparently it wasn't approved by the Army superiors, even though they were showing it.
Oh, good.
So,
well, that makes it better.
It's kind of a what the fuck is going on here type situation.
Do I actually want to watch this video or not?
It's only like 2 minutes.
I think you want to play the video live on air.
Well, then I got to get it. It's on my phone. How do I get it from my phone to this?
There are possibilities.
See, that was my problem. See, you were so glib before when you're just like, put it on the comments. I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Well, I guess I could Google it, then put it in the comments. That's probably what I should do.
Or I suppose I could just text it or email it to you. That would be really easy.
So many different platforms we're bouncing around in. Either way, I don't think I really care to watch the 2-minute video about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's. I don't know if I'm defending the Army or Satanism here. I'm not offended if they're really just in some. I'm offended by the vaccine requirements, and I'm offended by, I'm not offended by the idea that if they are truly jokingly using Satanism as some kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about this. The military is satanic in its very nature. So what am I supposed to be outraged by? Am I supposed to be outraged that some people in the military are referring to Satanism in some way, or the 7 tenets of Satanism, whatever it might be, when they're going around murdering people all day? Like, which one do I care about? I don't care about the slideshow. I care about the actual murdering. That's the stance I'm going to make without actually watching this thing.
Yeah, but it's a little bit, if there's something to this, and this is like me totally talking out of my ass, only knowing what Rico half-assedly told me here, but
that's a generous description of what I did.
But it is that's little
called reporting.
Like, if they are like showing their hand about some sort of rituals or something, I'm not saying they are. I am the conspiracy guy, but if they are like saying wink, wink, haha, or even if it's just a joke to say you guys are crazy, it's kind of like that video of the all gay men choir or whatever, where they come out and say, we're going to brainwash your kids, we're going to take them away, and it's all done in jest. But it's like, you're giving these people like what they want to demonize you, to make you out to be worse. Of course, I'm not comparing gay culture to murderous military culture by any stretch, but like, are they trying? I'm not. But like, it's not gonna I don't know. If it's a joke, it's not going to be like the people that you're attacking. It's just giving them fodder to keep saying the things that they're saying about you, and everybody else is gonna. I don't see how there's any plus side to this other than they're saying, "Hey, this is true."
Well, do they want to weed out people? Is that what they're looking for? Is to weed out people that have kind of independent thought or, have stronger religious convictions? Like, what is the end goal for the Army? It really doesn't seem to behoove having a strong military to say, Navy SEALs, well, you can't be deployed unless you're vaccinated. And they say, well, I'm not getting vaccinated. Well, you just spent how many years and how much money training these people, and then you're going to fire them?
Right.
Like, how does that make you a better military if that is your ultimate goal, to be a strong military?
There are some that believe that a lot of this push for this particular vaccine in the military is more of like a loyalty test sort of thing to weed out the ones that don't just blindly follow orders, that do actually think for themselves a little bit. So that whatever next bad thing the military wants to do that may or may not be directed at the American people, that military unit will be mostly, if not entirely, comprised of order followers, which is probably the military anyway. But as we know, I mean, we've met so many libertarians over the years that came from the military, that people that, maybe they got into it while they're young and then they see what's going on there and they open their eyes to things and they come out against the whole thing. They come out, hardcore libertarians or what have you. So maybe they're just trying to maybe they've heard enough libertarian podcasts to know that this is in some way a breeding ground for rebels. And maybe they're just like, all right, well, we got some Nazi shit planned. We're going to be bringing the troops home, and really the fuck home. So we want those people out of here. So maybe the vaccine is one thing. And then maybe they're saying, well, let's put some Satan stuff in some slides and see if we can get run some more strong-willed people out that way too.
Yeah. Getting people to show their hand. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seems plausible that they're just trying to, I wouldn't say the military is a breeding ground for people who are rebellious to the military, but yes,
I don't think it's a breeding ground, but we've probably had people on your show too that had a similar story where they kind of came into these ideas because of all the stuff that they saw in the military.
Yeah.
But if you didn't want any resistance, don't you subscribe to maybe keep your enemies closer? If you're kicking out highly trained individuals, those individuals there's guns that exist in America. I mean, they could want to take them away all they want. That's not going to happen.
Well, if you want to go deep conspiracy, maybe that's part of the plan too. We push people to the brink. We push them out of their jobs. We force them to get vaccines they don't want to get, and it puts them in a desperate situation. And maybe some of those people end up doing something. Perhaps they're influenced by someone in the FBI, or maybe it's just something they do on their own because they're that desperate. And when they do that something, well, guess what? Now we can crack down on. Now we can add some things to the list of people that are dangerous and that are potential terrorists. Anti-vaxxers, check. And an anti-vaxxer now is just anyone who doesn't immediately want to take a COVID vaccine that came out fucking 7 months ago. That's an anti-vaxxer now. Or people that are veterans now, or who were let go from the military. Now those people could be potential terrorists. So I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but either way, it's probably where a lot of the stuff is going to end up going.
Yeah, and I'll to continue down this conspiracy rabbit hole, all it takes
this is now Conspiracy Corner. We're rebranding the show.
All it takes is one veteran who's like suffering from PTSD, and he's like just been beaten down by the system and kicked out of his job and everything that
subtle ad placement, beaten down by the system, almost like his system is down. Oh. Was that not what you were doing? Okay, moving
on. All it takes is one of those guys to snap. You push them out of society and you demonize them, and you get one of them to snap, and you've got people who are fight or flight. Well, they're all fight. So you get one of them to snap and shoot up, I don't know, a club or something, or freaking hospital or something like that. Like, that's all they need to lock this entire country down really fast.
Well, I was thinking more of like a Rambo scenario where he's trying to, live his own life. I'm thinking the most recent Rambo where he goes to Mexico and goes crazy. He's living his life, trying not to be bothered. Then they bother him, and then they're fucking in trouble. So these people, fuck you. I'm in the Navy SEALs. You're making me get vaccinated. Nope, I'm going to go ahead and do my life. And they go home and they make some other kind of life for themselves. But they still have elite level fighting skills, and they could organize a ragtag militia and, I don't know, maybe do some damage to the perception of the United States' authority or power throughout the country. So if you get enough of those people and you kick enough of them out of the military, well, you suddenly have a resistance army that maybe is not kind of like laying dormant.
Yeah.
And it only takes one spark, and then you have a difficult situation on your hands. It's not just going to be one person that, oh, they're Timothy McVeigh'd something. You have a whole group of people that could fight back.
So the least conspiratorial devil's advocate route, why would they be doing this? Like when they're currently just not like forcing people that work for government or in the White House or anything like that. They don't have to get the vaccine, but the military does. Why are they doing that there? When
I believe the White House staff does have to as well.
Do they now?
From what I understand. Yeah,
they didn't before.
I think that was like a rumor busted.
Well, they could just be fucking morons. I mean,
yeah, that's what I always go to too, because how many people in your own life do you know that are completely Coov crazy, that have lost their fucking minds, that have no rational thought process when it comes to this? And there's no reason for me to believe that hysteria doesn't affect those in the upper levels of the military or the people that make these decisions in these giant bureaucracies. So while there is definitely conspiratorial elements at different layers of this, also, I don't need to look that far to look to my neighbors, my family members, and see that there's no reason for me to think that it's just not the same freaking hysteria playing itself out in other places.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm after my Chris Rock post last night, it's currently blowing up with this rage, and
what was the Chris Rock post? What was the actual tweet?
I'm trying to find it now.
Display it? Or is that too much?
I don't know how to do that on your thing.
Did Chris Rock do something controversial or say something?
No, he did something stupid.
He did one of those tweets where people that are vaccinated get COVID and get sick, and then tweet about how they're sick and no one wants to get this, but make sure you get vaccinated just like me.
Yes.
Because I would have been dead without it, because I know that, because the doctor told me I'd be so much worse without it.
It wasn't even that. It wasn't even that good. It was like, okay, so my tweet, hold on, let me find it here. And then, okay. So I said, Chris Rock gets vaccine. Chris Rock gets COVID. Chris Rock has bad COVID experience. Chris Rock urges people to get the vaccine so they don't go through the same thing he went through. Am I missing something here? And it's currently got like over 1,000 likes. Like he didn't, most of them are people saying, well, obviously he meant if he didn't get the vaccine, it would have been much worse. Like, but that's not what he fucking said. He said, he didn't say in this quote that he got the vaccine. He has said in the past, though, that he got the vaccine. And now he's saying, I got COVID and it really sucks. And I urge you all to get the vaccine so you don't have to go through what I went through. It's like, so you're saying do the exact same thing in hope of a different outcome, which is literally insanity that you're pushing for. And my Twitter is just blowing up with people trying to defend what he said by making up something that they think that he meant.
Yeah, and it probably is what he sort of means, but yeah, I guess he didn't say it in that way. But also, even what he means makes no sense. Like, even what they're saying makes no sense, because the fact of COVID is that most people that get it have very little symptoms or no symptoms or very minor symptoms. That's the vast majority of people that get it. So if you really have no way to know, there's no reason to think that Chris Rock, I mean, what's he, in his 50s? But he's pretty skinny. He's not overweight. Yeah. There's no reason to think that Chris Rock would have had a worse reaction to COVID without a vaccine. There's none to think that. If anything, you'd wonder why he's having such a bad reaction. Maybe he has he's a little bit older. He's what, like 10 years older than me, but he's not super old. And most people that are even 65 or under basically have no chance of, like, a very low chance of hospitalization or anything. And he's not in the hospital, but it's this circular logic, though. Yeah. Whatever level to which they're someone that takes the vaccine that has bought into this narrative and can't be moved from it no matter what, whatever extent that they get sick, they will just say, well, thank God I have the vaccine because it would have been so much worse. But I don't know if you guys saw the one like a few weeks ago where this, I don't remember, I think it was a father that died and the family was there. It was one of these stories where the family is urging everyone to get vaccinated. And then you find out the father was vaccinated. And then the doctor, there's actually like a quote from the doctor that says, well, it would have been so much worse if he wasn't vaccinated. He fucking died. How would it be so much worse? So get the vaccine so you don't die as bad?
It's like me saying
the marketing now?
I got COVID and I stayed in bed for a month and it really sucked. it's a good thing I didn't get out of bed. Otherwise, it would have been much worse. Like, you're just assuming. You have no idea that it would have been worse. It might have been better. You might have died. I don't know. I'm not making definitive statements, but people on the other side are definitively saying it would have been much worse.
It's a
I asked JB about. Remember, I asked JB about that, and it's like, well, how could you possibly scientifically know if a virus that is characterized in large part by its asymptomatic infection, if your particular infection would have been worse if you didn't have the vaccine? It's impossible to tell.
You can't. You actually can't even know that it wouldn't have been less bad without the vaccine.
Yeah, right.
There's no way to tell. It's all subjective symptom severity at that point. Like he said, it's, a doctor rates a burn, first degree, second degree, third degree. It's the same thing with COVID. That's how they're extrapolating whether or not your particular condition would have been worse. Is they're looking at a sample population saying, well, these 30% of people have third degree COVID. Whatever, severe symptoms, and 40% don't. And you probably would have fall within that 30% if you didn't have the vaccine. It's fucking utter horseshit.
Yeah. And I have no reason to believe that taking the vaccine probably does lessen your symptoms. It seems like it probably does for a certain amount of time, but they have the data. Israel was far ahead of us on this. Israel vaccinated almost the entire population by January or so of last year. And by July and August, almost the entire population had no protection from COVID because they got all the data and they know that after about 6 months, it doesn't work. It doesn't do fucking anything. So you're going to take a temporary relief, possibly from something, by taking something with completely unknown side effects and how it's going to affect you long term. And then the fact that really implies that, well, if it only works for 6 months, that's why we need the boosters. And I just saw this thing that this one Pfizer booster, they're like, gives you a solid 12 days of protection. I go, okay, well, cool. So every 12 days, we just take another shot and then we'll all be good. So make sure you get your vaccine, everybody.
And if this quote unquote vaccine, like, we've determined that it doesn't stop the spread, it doesn't stop you from getting it, doesn't stop you from giving it to others. So if all it does is makes your symptoms less bad, isn't that like Theraflu or like some sort of cough suppressant would do pretty much the same thing? It makes your symptoms less bad, but it doesn't take away the COVID. Like, at what point do we stop even calling this a vaccine?
I mean,
well, it's all
I stopped calling it that a long time ago.
If you don't call it a vaccine, you can't compare it to other vaccines that are mandatory. You can't compare it to the smallpox vaccine if you don't call it a vaccine, right? So that's the word games they're playing. Right.
Yeah. In 2021, a vaccine is something that lessens your symptoms from a disease. Whereas 2 years ago, that was not a year ago, that's not how vaccine was defined. They also changed the definition of pandemic because we would not be in a pandemic right now by the old definition.
Also changed the definition of ivermectin, if you recall.
There was a Huffington Post story from 2017 on Fauci. Of course, Fauci is the darling of the left, and Huffington Post you don't get much more left than that. They were killing him for his role in the AIDS pandemic. I wish I could find the story, but basically it was he really slow walked some kind of therapeutic or some kind of treatment regime that treating doctors were giving their patients, and the treating doctors were saying, you have to, we need you to come out for this so we can save a lot of lives. It's like, well, the evidence isn't there, blah, blah, blah. 4 years later, came out and said, yes, this is a great treatment program. And it cut mortality rate drastically. And it's like, well, is this not deja fucking vu? Yeah. He is slow walking anything that is not vaccine. Ivermectin, it's fucking horse paste, hydroxychloroquine, whatever, untested, unproven. Yeah, anything that's a therapeutic.
Untested, unproven drugs that have been given to people for 30 years without any issues.
Yeah. And ivermectin won awards. It won like Nobel Peace Prize awards.
Won the Emmy, I think, right?
Something like that.
Joe Rogan handing the Emmy to the horse. Congratulations, your pace has been saving millions of lives.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Emmys, that's another story.
Oh yeah, well I don't watch them, but I know they happened, and I did see the Joe Rogan clip. That's the only part I really.
I didn't even hear about that.
I meant Seth Rogen. Whatever, one of those.
The part where they did not have to wear masks because they fell within the LA County exemption for the entertainment industry. Not that they were fucking filming a movie, they're sitting there like they're watching a movie. And if you go watch a movie in LA, or if theaters are even open, I bet you can't watch without a mask.
Yeah.
Right? They are in the entertainment industry, so they don't have to wear a fucking mask. Well, the servers there do.
Yeah, I can speak on this a little bit. It makes no more logic than you're pointing out, though. But their justification is like, yes, the entertainment industry about 4 months into the pandemic was deemed essential, which is why I went back to work after 4 months, or 3 months, or whatever it was of the shutdown here originally. And basically, they said you have to work under these certain guidelines, so you have to test, you have to mask, all this shit. But then because part of the entertainment industry is filming and shooting things, part of the exemption is like the on-camera talent doesn't have to wear a mask because they're shooting a thing, So basically they're saying that the Emmys which is sort of true, but it's still bullshit, is a TV production, so that all of the people in the audience, they're part of the production. They're part of the they're part of the production. They're actors in the play, so to speak. So then they don't have to wear masks. Meanwhile, they're all sitting next to each other, no social distancing. Not that I care about that at all, because that's retarded too. But the worst part to me of this and all these different various rules are how the staff and the waiters or whatever, they always have to wear the masks. Same thing at the Met Gala. You see AOC and all these fucking people without their masks on, and then every one of these waiters that's serving the food has to wear masks. It's a new indicator of class status. If you're a certain class, you don't have to wear a mask. The rules don't apply to you. But if you're just some worker, I talked about this with Jeffrey Tucker last year. He's like, this is where it's going. It's going to become a class status thing where if you don't wear a mask, you're in a higher class, and if you're seen wearing a mask, well, you're one of those lower level like worker type people, and the mask signifies that you don't have the special privileges that everyone else has.
I think it's even worse that we just accepted the complete bullshit reason that you just gave as the reason why it's okay for them to not wear masks to begin with. Like, they're in the entertainment business. If this is a pandemic and we all have to be in this together, and anybody that isn't in this together is evil, but it's okay as long as you're playing a fake human on TV, then it's perfectly fine, because COVID and pandemics and death, they don't concern you. Obviously, you're above that.
When you say we accepted it, I think what you're talking about is the crazy people on the left accepted it.
Well, all the crazy people everywhere, yes.
Yeah. It never made any logical sense. But that goes to the point of with the vaccine mandates, the mask mandates, everything now, it's like, okay, so we're still in the pandemic. We're 18 months later. How do you have less rights now than you did at the start of the pandemic? If it was okay for people to fly in March of 2020, why are they trying to roll out passports now?
Right.
Does that have any logical sense? If a person, and this is probably the worst thing, if a person could work as a nurse at a hospital from March through September of 2020, they were probably working double shifts.
Then heroes.
Now they're getting fucking fired.
Right. All these heroes that were praised for their TikTok dances, they're now the villains because they didn't capitulate to the system. But
my dad was at a hospital, and he's fine, but he was just getting some like routine testing done a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that he asked the nurse, he was like, "Hey, so what's the deal with this COVID vaccine? Like, are they mandating it? You get it? You guys get it?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, it's a huge thing, and something like 30% of the nurses are not taking it and are going to be resigning in mass, or getting fired in mass, or which either one." And that really makes you think too. Because the nurses and the people that work in these hospitals, they're the ones that have been seeing COVID for the last year and a half.
They are the experts, right?
If anyone's a fucking expert,
trusting.
Exactly. If anybody's an expert, if anybody I trust more to judge this thing, it would be the people that actually see it. And my theory here is that these nurses, they see that it's not what it is on TV. They see that most people are coming in are not there. We already know that half the people they were listing as COVID cases were just in the hospital with COVID, but they weren't there for COVID. They were there for something else, and then they just make them get a test, and they go, "Oh, you got COVID." Boom, COVID case. But they're not there for COVID. They're there for something totally unrelated, but they're listed as COVID cases now. Yeah. And then even amongst those ones, even amongst the ones that were really there for COVID, over 50% of those were mild or no symptoms. Or not mild or no symptoms, but mild to very, very, very minor symptoms. So if the nurses are there seeing this day to day for the last year and a half, and then suddenly they're being told you have to take this vaccine or you're going to die. Meanwhile, they've seen the people that die, and they know it's not them. They know it's people that are either of a certain age group or a certain weight or what have you. And some of them take it. But I think the reason you see a higher percentage there is because they see it. They see the bullshit, and they're saying, why am I going to be forced to take this vaccine? I've been seeing this thing for a year and a half, and I know that it's not. I'm not in that category of someone that needs to be worried about it.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to quit, and then the hospitals are going to have to shutter wings or not have the same capacity. And then you're going to get the stories. New York hospitals are full again. Well, it's like, well, they're 20% capacity of what they were 6 months ago. Of course they're at capacity.
They've got ICU beds and tents outside. Unstaffed. Well, yeah, you fired all your nurses. What do you want me to say?
So I had a fun story. Some friends of our family, a couple with some kids, one of their boys was showing some symptoms of COVID and like just mild symptoms. And she was just trying to be cautious, trying to do the right thing. So she called the local hospital and asked them, should he be going into school? We want to make sure that we're doing stuff right. Like she was concerned about spreading it and the well-being of her child, as a parent would be. So she asked them that. And their response was, well, you need to call the school and ask what their current guidelines are. And she was like, I'm asking you, the medical professional, what you think is best for my child. And they're like, well, check with the local, like whatever, the local courthouse and see what they say about it. Like, so medical professional, we're supposed to trust the medical professionals, but their instruction is to instruct you to go ask politicians and like diplomats, like what the best medical advice is. And we're pretending like this is a medical emergency and not a political bullshit.
It's all coming down to like the local county boards, what their mandates are, because you can be, if you're in a very, urban center, you're going to have much more restrictions than if you live 10 miles outside of the city.
Yeah.
If you're in the country or a more remote place, you would not, they're doing nothing, it's operating business as usual. My one friend's a principal in a city like 2 hours away, very kind of rural setting. Sure. He's like, we haven't seen a mask in over a year.
Nice.
We don't, there's nothing going on. We operate business as usual, and they just don't fucking pay attention. And I think that's going to be more and more. Well, it's probably already here. Go outside of the blue areas, and what do you know?
Yeah, well, my wife works for a school in a small rural town as well, and she's currently facing losing her job if she doesn't do one of three things. One
of three things. At least she has the option of one of three things.
Right. Well, it's like
me and many others didn't even have that.
Get the jab, take the weekly test, or she pushed back on the weekly test because it's complete bullshit too. Or I don't remember. I think the third one was like take a test at a different location or something.
Dance a jig every morning when you come into work.
Pretty much. It's all arbitrary bullshit. But it's especially proven that it's arbitrary when they say, well, it doesn't go into effect immediately. This goes into effect on the 1st or whatever. It's like, so it's just fine up until the 1st, and then things are going to change on the 1st. Like, is this an emergency or is it not? And if it's not, then why are we pretending? And she's like friends with the people of the school. And it's like, I mean, at what point do these schools say, funding be damned, we're going to do the right thing and, stop forcing our children to wear masks or be vaccinated or whatever the fuck?
I have what let's just call this person a friend for now. This friend was facing a vaccine
until they hear this.
Until they was facing a vaccine mandate at work, and they said, well, if you don't get vaccinated, you're a danger to yourself and those around you. So starting in 11 days, you got to have the vaccine. So it's like, wait, so they're a danger.
Right.
You're literally dangerous, but it's okay to be dangerous for the next, 11 or 12 days or something. And then,
you can come into a school shooting a gun for the next 11 days. But after that, you're going to be a real threat, and we're going to have to ask you politely to leave.
Yeah, exactly. So
wasn't that the whole Biden policy on the, whatever you want to call it, the migrant surge in Texas? It's like, they don't need to be vaccinated because they're not going to be here for a long time. It's like, well, wait, what?
How long does it take?
They're not one. What are you talking about? They're not going to be here for a long time. You're putting them into other cities and saying, come back for a court date and an indefinite amount of time in the future. And then maybe they'll, whatever. But two, if you're spreading it you're fucking spreading it, whether you're there a day or 2 weeks.
Yep.
So I don't understand how that could possibly withhold judicial scrutiny if there was actually an independent judiciary that wasn't, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court wasn't in bed with all these people to begin with.
Are we going to talk about Sarah Silverman? Because I feel like Brian would want it that way.
We will talk about Sarah Silverman right after this quick word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, a quick commercial break here. Sponsor break for two libertarians, Vanessa Abelar and her husband, Carlos, two libertarians who run a CBD company you're going to enjoy. That is Paloma Verde CBD. Let me spell that for you so you can know where to find it. PALOMAVERDE CBD.com. Now, you can use the promo code ROAR to get 25% off your order of $75 or more. Free shipping though, so that's awesome. To help support libertarian causes, libertarian entrepreneurs, and also this show. Let me tell you about these products. These are premium grade, THC free, and with mostly organic ingredients. They've got some mink tinctures that are fantastic. Onset about 20 minutes, last 4 to 6 hours, guys. Green apple gummies, also strawberry lemonade. Those will last about 6 to 8 hours as well. Fast acting everyday soft gels, 10 milligrams. Those will hit you fast and hard if you're in pain, if you need some relief quick. And of course, they also have their salves. I'm looking forward to this. Mark is still hoarding it. I'm going to go over and non-aggression principally, punch him in the face. But I do want to use this salve on my sore knee, this eucalyptus lavender salve. But anyway, guys, check them out. Great company. Support libertarianism, support us, and support them. Go to PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Remember, use that promo code ROAR for 25% off your order of $75 or more and free shipping.
Now, before we get back into the show, I do have to break down that commercial a little bit here because I guess he has an older version in here before he corrected his pronunciation. But as a Latino man myself, I can say it is not pronounced Paloma Verde. It's pronounced Paloma Verde. Because who the fuck didn't take at least one day of Spanish in high school and know that verde means green?
Or who got a sponsor and didn't take the time to learn what the name of the sponsor was?
Well, that would be Brian McWilliams for you.
Well, that's his shtick, isn't it? Mispronouncing
kind of shtick.
every
That's
fifth
the thing.
word.
Yeah.
So it is on brand. So we can pretend that he's just being on brand, but we know that's not actually the case, that he actually just pronounces it wrong and refuses to change, and that's okay. But he is right about one thing, that their products are freaking amazing, and he's also right about the fact that the freebies were all sent to me and that I have been hoarding them. But I'm not really hoarding them. I just haven't taken my personal time out to go bring them to him, and nor has he taken his time out to come to me. And now that he's got the cooties, he's never going to get them because I'm going to be out of this place before he even has a chance. So it's been fun. But I will continue enjoying the fine products from Carlos and Vanessa over at PalomaVerdeCBD.com. I have just destroyed these gummies. These green gummies they have are so freaking delicious. It's like, that's the problem with edibles, whether it's CBD or marijuana, is you're supposed to be taking them for a reason, for an effect. But if they taste really good, then you can take too many. And that's a problem when you have marijuana edibles, from what I understand. But what's great about it is that it's not a problem with CBD, because CBD doesn't really mess you up. Like, you might just get a little more relaxed, but you're still going to be able to function. So don't worry about overdosing. Eat these gummies. Take them all down. Enjoy your 25% off by using discount code. What was it? Roar? Lions? I don't know. I think it's Lions. No, I think it's Roar.
SID.
Because I was listening so close.
Just rewind the podcast.
Just rewind. All right. But yeah, that's our sponsor.
So,
Anyway.
Mark, are you officially going to GTFO and practice what you preach? Or is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'm GTFO in 7 days from now.
Nice.
That's officially unofficial.
Congratulations on being real finally. Cool.
Yeah, it's something that had to happen eventually.
Yeah, speaking of getting the fuck out, New Hampshire is talking about seceding, and what's her face? Sarah Silverman is pushing for, or suggesting politely, that we go for civil divorce here. So, Mark, your thoughts?
Wow.
I did see. I actually only heard those comments because I heard Dave Smith breaking.
I can share the video if you want.
Can you?
Wow, someone knows how to share a video.
I mean, if I had the physical video, I can add clips.
I would need it. Screen share. Will there be audio if I screen share?
If you press the button that's there should be another button like in the process that you select that will give us
share screen.
So give it a shot. Let's find out. We'll do it live.
Audio. Follow these steps to share a video with audio. How many steps are there? Oh Lord.
Not that many, right? Is it a lot? All right. Well, while Dan figures that out, What else is going on? Rico, how's life?
Oh, it's wonderful. Get to be in my house every day. It's so much fun.
So you have you not gone to for those that don't know, Rico is a lawyer. He practices law. He's still practicing. Have you not been in a physical courtroom since COVID started?
Correct. March of 2020. March.
Is that because
13th.
you're dealing with federal courthouses?
Yep.
Oh.
And there's no plan to reopen at all. And like, whatever. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I would prefer to get out sometimes. I think it's going to be, even when they do, if and when they do reopen, it'll still be a hybrid model where a lot of people will have the option to do it on the phone. And so I'm thinking like 3 or 4 days a week, I'll probably be sitting at my house, which is great. I can just put my phone on mute during the boring parts and cook some breakfast or do a little laundry. You get a lot more done multitasking. Yeah.
When that judge is just droning on and on about your client and you're just listening to podcasts and making eggs.
Yeah, that is what happens. So hopefully no one that is a client of mine will hear this right now, but I don't think we run in the same circles.
I mean, I had to deal with, with my wife's immigration stuff, we had to deal with Social Security offices, but as you know, they're not actually open, even though they are. So you have to call and then answer all these COVID questions. Like, did you travel in the last 14 days? Did you do this or that? Are you sick? Are you dying? Blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, cool, we'll call you back when we find someone that can come into the office to meet you for this appointment, because they're not just there. Like, you have to schedule a whole thing. And this is all to do something that could easily be done like by email. It's just showing a couple of documents and then they say, okay, cool, we'll give you a Social Security number now. Nothing that really needed to be done in person in the first place.
So
is it going to be
screen open?
I was going to ask Mark one question real quick. Is it going to be an extra kick in the balls when you just end up living in Mexico for the rest of your life anyways, that you spend all that money on this?
Yes. if that happens,
here's my receipt. Can I get a refund?
It'll be more of a kick in the balls for my wife, who spent 8 months stuck in the U.S. while waiting for her green card. So,
yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. We have a lot of we'll see where things go. We have a lot of potential plans, and a lot of them depend on what goes on with a lot of other things that we don't control. So we shall see.
I have this open. You can't see it, correct? It's down at the bottom. Like
I do see a thing that says, okay, maybe I have to add it to the stream.
Maybe
because I can press add to stream. Should I do that?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Okay.
There we go. Can you hear it?
I mean, this may be a negative thought, but
wait, hold on. Let me switch my audio.
It does seem to work. So whenever you're ready, fire away.
1 second. How about now? Can you hear it now?
or maybe a positive
You hear that?
Okay.
one. I don't know, but if people aren't getting along, like in relationship, they break up. So like, why don't we just finally just realize?
Is that the whole thing? What happened?
Well, I can hear it in the background. I think he minimized it.
He took it away. Anyway,
I think we get the general gist.
we get the gist.
Did it not play? What happened there?
It played for like 15 seconds and then you took it away, or it went.
She
away.
said, "Let's break up," and I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah.
let's do that."
Yeah. And which Dave Smith pointed this out as well. Repping the Smith and the top lobster here. But
this is the part of the problem addendum where we just talk about the things Dave already talked about and then add very little of substance.
He's a real good guy, but he won't come on my show because he's scared. But
He's still getting the cold shoulder, the cold Twitter shoulder.
Yeah. No, I'm mostly just trolling and pretending like I'm actually trying hard to get him on and he's actually scared. But of course, we know that he's just ignoring me because he's Dave Smith. But the thing that he pointed out that is the best part is that she's like talking about peacefully splitting up, and she's like, there can be America 1 and America 2, and we can just let them be America 1 because we know that they love being first and yada yada. It's like, okay, you can make fun of it all you want. You can bash on it on the way out. I am perfectly fine with that. But yes, I'll be America whatever, or whatever country you want to call us. You can call us the basket of deplorables for all I care, as long as this bullshit goes away. And if y'all want to keep your vaccines and your paranoia and this the twice daily Pfizer pills that are definitely coming down the pike, great, you go do that wherever you want, and then then we'll have at least a control group over here that can show just how deadly this virus is.
It's great that someone from the left is actually saying that. I don't know how much influence Sarah Silverman has over other people's thinking, but great. Get more people thinking that way. Because, I mean, I think a lot of people on the right have thought that for a long time and just, sick of people in faraway places having outsized influence on how we can live our life. And you just be like, hey, you do you, we'll do us. Best wishes. I don't see what the problem is, other than obviously DC is not going to go along with that.
We can definitely like the rhetoric and encourage people to think that way. Just color me skeptical about whether people like Sarah Silverman actually want that. It's nice that they're entertaining the idea, but the whole thing about the left mentality, whether people want to admit it or not, or actively realize it, it's about control. It's about controlling other people. And it's about having society be the way you want it. And if you just let people live the way they want, you're not really getting the society that you want. So I like the idea of what she's saying, but I just don't believe her. I believe she's having this legitimate thought.
She's talking about people she doesn't care about. Like, oh yeah, Mississippi, go be your own state. All our cultured people in New York and California and blah, blah, blah. Well, obviously.
Like I said, though, it's fine. She can be as condescending as she wants. And even if she doesn't believe it, even if she's just like, I'm going to control you by forcing you out of the country and you can have that crappy land over there, I'd be like, fine, please force me out of your country because I don't want to live in whatever you have a part in ruling.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening in real time right now. I'm leaving Sarah Silverman's country, so I'm following her advice. I'm doing what she wants. I'm separating myself.
What's New Hampshire doing? I didn't even hear about that.
They are pushing for actual secession, but I haven't kept up with how far along they are. But they passed a bill or something that I read a headline and it's going around. But
the state legislature did.
I don't entirely know the details at all. I know
think
that
it's just some guy.
Free State Project has been pushing for that for a while, obviously, and they're like kind of spearheading it from what it sounds like. I know Tim Pool's talked about it quite a bit, that they're trying to leave now. Whether or not, I don't know. Do you guys think that there's any chance that any state would be allowed to leave without war?
No.
Well, no, I don't think that there would be a war. I don't think. Well, I don't know. I like to think it's hard for me to picture like the U.S. federal government invading like New Hampshire.
Whoa! Let's look at your first part of the statement there. It's hard for me to believe,
and that's the part.
Really, in 2021, is it hard for you to believe anything at this point?
That's the kicker.
Waco was smaller than New Hampshire, I believe.
That's the caveat with everything nowadays. Like, yeah, it's anything that would be hard for me to believe has to be on the table now, because I would never believe we would be locked in our homes and all this stuff, or forced to take vaccines that came out 7 months ago that aren't even vaccines, in order to be allowed to work and eventually allowed to go to a freaking store, which is going to be the thing in California does not include grocery stores, apparently, because you can't get sick at grocery stores, but it does include it's concerts and bars and restaurants. And I don't think this was not talked about on Brian's show because the results were not in at the time that he recorded yet. But I think it's somewhat interesting timing that literally the day after Gavin Newsom survives his recall, more than survives, easily wins the recall vote, which I much unlike Brian and his bad predictions, since this whole show is just about ragging on him, he was very confident that Newsom was going to be removed and replaced by Larry Elder.
Well, he also thought Maxine Waters was going to lose her district.
Yeah, but if nothing else, Brian is often hopelessly optimistic, which I guess I can appreciate in her own way. But yeah, I mean, it's not a coincidence that the next day the website came up for the California Vax Pass that's coming. This is Gavin Newsom's not gonna take this lying down. He's pissed off, man. You embarrassed him, put him up for a recall vote. He's gonna lock the shit down out of this place, and it's gonna be an ugly, ugly place to live. It already was in many ways, but it's gonna get a lot worse. And he made that really clear by immediately implementing the vaccine passports.
Yeah,
so good time.
How do you guys feel about Penn Jillette lately?
Another Brian faux rage that I can go on about. Brian was like, I can't believe this Penn Jillette son of a bitch with posting this picture with Gavin Newsom. I'm like, dude, he endorsed Hillary 4 years ago. Where you been?
Right.
This guy has not been any kind of like actual libertarian.
I thought he like sold his Gary Johnson vote basically. Like he traded with somebody in another state where it made strategic sense or some bullshit just so he could vote for Hillary Clinton, which makes no sense at all.
Honestly, Penn Jillette is one of those guys. He's like, I don't know, like a caviar libertarian, or like he's like a libertarian at parties, at highfalutin Hollywood parties. But in real life, but at those same parties, he makes friends with people like Hillary Clinton and Gavin Newsom, and he might even say at those parties, "Oh yeah, I'm kind of a libertarian on something." And then later it's like, all right, they shake hands and they exchange contacts, and their managers talk to each other or whatever, and that's the connection that matters more than whatever random extent that Penn Jillette thinks he's a libertarian because he like doesn't drink alcohol and he's kind of an atheist or something, and he somehow puts that all in with libertarianism because it's what makes him feel fucking bougie and shit. No, I can't stand Penn Jillette. I haven't been able to stand him for a long time, really. Although I loved Penn Jillette. I like his magic. I know he was one of your early influences because I've not only had you on my show, I actually listened to what you said and remember you talking about listening to Penn Sunday School as like an early libertarian influence.
I did. I always loved the way he framed, like, not libertarianism in general, but when he talked about libertarianism, there was one thing that he said that was just very simple. It's not like mind-blowing or anything, but he was like, if we try libertarianism and there are people dying in the streets, then fine, we'll go back to some other way, but let's try it. And I think that more libertarians need to have a mindset of that. Not saying more libertarians need to be more like Penn Jillette at this point, obviously, but we need to lighten up a little bit on our "we have all the answers" rhetoric and just tell people, let's try this. Like, democracy was a gigantic experiment and it's currently failing miserably. Maybe we should try a couple other things and see how they go. If you want to be a part of that experiment, fine. If you want to be a part of, vaccine experiment, you can go be a part of that experiment. It doesn't concern you in any way if you don't want to be a part of it.
Indeed, until we make it a condition of going to work or shopping or flying or anything like that. So
right, I'm saying in a seceded, split up country, like we can have our experiment over here, and you guys can keep experimenting on yourselves medically over there. That's fine.
Until like New York says you can't even fly over our state unless you're vaccinated.
So will this be a test? This next year be kind of evidence whether or not elections are real? Because midterms are coming up quick, right? 2022. And a lot of this stuff is not polling well. Like vaccine mandates, generally not a big selling point in different parts of society. Businesses are not doing great especially with these. They're going to shut down, so the economy is going to tank further. Maybe even the stock market, it's hard to believe as that is, whatever that means, could go down as well. So typically you would respond accordingly and say, well, these aren't polling well. And we do have big elections coming up next year that could determine control of the House, the Senate, blah, blah, blah. And you would revise your policies accordingly. But if you don't revise your policies, does that mean you're not worried about losing the election because you already know you have it in the bag? Or is that way too conspiratorial?
I don't think we can look at COVID stuff the same way as normal politics stuff because it is a hysteria. It's a true hysteria, and it's turned into a religion. So I don't think that the same political logic will apply. Like, oh, let's just adjust our poll numbers because this isn't going. No, I don't, and I think that it kind of will throw out political strategy for people in many ways. Because it's about a religion now. It's about a belief system. It's not about what will poll best. But at the same time, I think elections are bullshit, and it probably doesn't matter also. So I actually agree with the conspiracy part of the theory, coincidentally.
Yes, I do as well, which is of no surprise, I'm sure. But
I think elections have on the local level, elections are probably pretty real. But I think on the national level, this is a fact. Like JFK, it's known that it was just the manipulation of the vote in Chicago that made him president. And I really think that most elections don't need to be rigged because by the time we get to, I'm talking about like national elections anyway, they don't need to be rigged because by the time we get to that level, they've already filtered the candidates out. So it's usually Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. And at the end of the day, the establishment's pretty much fine with either one. So they don't really need to do fraud, although there are certainly parties in there like Republicans, Democrats that will engage in fraud on those levels to try to get their team in power. But the grand establishment really doesn't really care as long as it's, one of their guys. So it's usually one of their guys. I do think Trump was the exception. I'm not saying Trump was blazingly anti-establishment. He kind of merged into the establishment in many ways, but I do think they didn't want him to win. And I do think they thought he had no chance to win. And I think everyone was kind of caught by the seat of their pants when he ended up winning, because I think they just didn't do the normal rigging they might do if they were really worried about it. Because I really think they bought their own hype and bought their own polls that said like Trump has no chance. And then they realized, wow, we completely fucked that one up. So they went the entire other extreme of it for Biden. So this will probably get us taken down off YouTube, but I'm okay with that.
That's fine. It's Brian's show.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
we can blame him
too,
for all
whatever.
of
It doesn't matter.
Right, but we can blame him, and it's his show.
Exactly. Hey, he's the one that let three idiots just hop on his fucking show and talk trash about him for an hour or so.
Exactly. And it wouldn't be my first time getting kicked off YouTube. So
he's still executive producer of Electric Libertyland.
That's right.
As far as
I am, as the name would denote, Brian McWilliams. But I am curious in 2024 if Trump runs, which I really hope he doesn't. I am curious how he's going to spend this and what he's going to like on the topic of COVID. Like, he was super proud of this vaccine that he made, and at the time Biden and Kamala were saying can't get the vaccine because Trump made it. Obviously, he made it with his own two tiny little hands. And then Biden gets elected, and suddenly it's the Biden vaccine, and all the Trump supporters hate it. And now we've got Trump coming out at a rally saying, just get the vaccine. It worked for me, and people booing him. Like, Trump is really proud of this thing, and he wants people to get it. He wants to put his name on it, but he also wants to be against Biden. If, like, assuming that these two terrible candidates run again, what exactly is even going to be the campaign strategy at that point?
I don't think Biden's running in 2024.
I don't think Biden will be alive in 2024. I can't believe he's still kicking now.
I do think he's purposely there to do a bunch of bad shit, so they don't care, because they don't care about him at all.
Yeah, I think he's a patsy fall guy for all of this stuff. Like, they're in my conspiracy brain, I'm like, well, they needed somebody to get us out of Afghanistan at some point, and they didn't want to throw away any good candidates. So they're like, hey, let's put up a guy who's almost dead, who probably won't live through pulling out of Afghanistan, and the woman who got the lowest approval rating in her primaries, Kamala Harris, and we can just fuck shit up all day long, and it doesn't matter because everybody knows these people are trash to begin with.
This is not really on the Trump thing as much. Although, did you see the rally where there was one rally where he was at pretty recently where he mentioned the vaccine? He's like, and I'm vaccinated. I want to encourage everyone to get vaccinated. And the crowd starts booing. They start booing him. Yeah. So I think in many ways, this thing has taken on a life of its own, both for the COVID brainwash, COVID cult people and the anti people. Like, I'd probably boo him if I probably wouldn't be at the rally in the first place. But I think I would be at the rally to boo him. So yeah, well, maybe it's taken on a life of its own, and it's going to be interesting to watch how these different forces sort of interact, because Trump is the anti-establishment force, but he's also not, and he also promotes a lot of establishment lines when it comes to COVID and the vaccine. The fact is, he was responsible for the lockdowns happening in the first place. It was his administration that put out the recommendation of locking down. It's just that after a couple of weeks, they took it back and he said, let the states decide. And all the blue states said, well, fuck you, we're going to keep locking down. And most of the red states kind of started to back away from it. But he was responsible for the initial lockdowns happening. So he should not get a pass on any of this stuff, frankly.
Do you think that they will bother to care to run Kamala? Or will they just say, scrap this whole
I kind of think it'll be Mayor Pete.
Really?
They're going to bring him back? They're going to dust him off?
Yeah.
It's so great the first time.
So do we think Biden dies or just gets removed from office for being to something? Or is there a scandal maybe his son's shit finally fucking takes him out?
I think he'll just be like an advisor. Assuming he's not dead, he'll say, I'm not going to run, but I'm throwing my support behind this fucking clown.
But you think he'll finish his term though?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, what's the point of, because if you put in Kamala, it's just, unless they're really just trying to flat out troll Republicans, which they're kind of doing at all his press conferences where he's like, I'm not supposed to take questions. Like, really? Are you doing this on purpose? Like, you can't possibly be serious in saying this shit. But putting in Kamala would just be like, yeah, all those people who said Biden was a Trojan horse for Harris, you're right. What are you going to do about it? Fuck you. But I don't know if they want to go that far.
I mean,
so that's
I don't know what they could even do with her. Like, my brain goes to, obviously, if they're not trying to run Prop Biden back up, they're going to run Kamala as the next option or whatever, just for namesake. But what do they even say to get her? Like, she didn't get elected to the position she's in now. She did terribly in her primaries. What do they even say to push her at that point? Like,
exactly.
We have nothing here. We had nothing to get her to the point of running for president in a way that mattered. And now that she's been vice president, we haven't heard a goddamn thing out of her mouth, like anything that she's done.
Yeah.
What are they going to use?
She's been terrible. But the other thing about her is if they're going to make that move, you got to kind of do it rather soon. Assuming elections are real. Who's an if she's elevated from vice president to president, you'd have to I don't even know how it works. You have to confirm a new vice president. Is that how it works? But if you did it and say right before the election and they were dragging their feet who the next vice president is, no one gets confirmed, the House switches, well, all of a sudden you have fucking a Republican as a Speaker of the House.
Right.
So you really can't wait too long, I wouldn't think. But of course, maybe I'm just making up the whole succession and how it works if you elevate the vice president.
This whole thing, this whole pandemic and these elections and everything have made me simultaneously more of a conspiracy theorist and also less of a conspiracy theorist, because I feel like there's enough, obviously, to lend credence to the idea of these crazy conspiracy theories being true, but there's also so much just bullshit nonsense that it feels like they're just making it up as they go and they have no idea. Like, there's no plan. They're just like throwing shit at the wall. Let's burn this thing down as quickly as possible. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm here for it, and I love our retarded timeline.
Hey guys, I do have an update on the health status of Brian McWilliams. This was posted on our locals page. So again, if you don't like Patreon, head over to locals, lionsliberty.locals.com. Apparently Brian says, I've got the Delta variant, gang. So apparently, even though he won't test for COVID, he actually knows that he has the Delta variant, which as far as I know, there are no actual tests for any variants, but he's not taking any tests. But anyway, just wanted y'all to know that Brian officially has the Delta variant.
Nice.
So has he had all like three? Did he have Alpha back in November and then the Beta?
I think he's had all the variants. That's what it is.
He's
the variant.
He's got all the variants.
The whole fraternity of variants. Yeah.
He should sell his blood at this point. I mean, on one hand, he keeps getting sick, but on the other hand, he's got to have antibodies for everything. So
right. He will be invincible when he makes it through this. Now, once we get to the Omega variant, is that where it starts getting really dangerous and we have to actually take vaccines that do something?
I think Zeta is when we got to really start getting real here.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be is it going to be funny when they run out of Greek letters and they have to go to like, well, this is the alpha variant. At what point in time are people going to be like,
subdivisions?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Maybe they'll start naming them like hurricanes. Like, oh, the Sally variant is coming in this month. Josephine, variant Josephine coming out next March.
Yep.
Anyway, speaking of variants, and speaking of whatever, I don't know how I'm trying to transition to this, but I do want to let you guys know that you got to listen to a podcast called Burnin' Daylight. It's from one of our great Patreon supporters, Matt McKinley. He is a freaking cowboy, and he's a real cowboy, and he is such a damn cowboy. He even has done podcasts literally sitting on the back of a horse. And Matt's a great dude. He's a member of the Lions Liberty Pride. He joins us for a lot of our monthly calls. I think he's been on almost all of them since he joined up. Really great dude, really solid dude. And whether you're into cowboy shit or not, it's really freaking entertaining. So check out Burnin' Daylight. Boof.
Burnin' Daylight.
All right, well, that's my last plug. What do you guys? I was just here to get the plugs in, our legally obligated plugs. It's the whole reason for this show.
Makes sense.
And I've got nothing else. What about you guys? Anything
you guys hear about White Hot Fed Boy Fall? The rally?
That picture of those guys from the January 6th, whatever it is, rally?
Yeah. There's this rally on September 18th that Trump put out a statement a couple days before saying, don't go to this. This is a setup. This is a trap. And then nobody shows up except for a bunch of guys who look kind of fetish.
Those dark sunglasses, they're in the crew cuts. Like they couldn't look more like cops.
5 dudes that look identical to Nicholas Sarwark standing in a circle. And,
no, not identical. Those guys actually look like they could win a fight against me or anybody.
So 4 people got arrested apparently, and one of the ones that got arrested was like he was like he was a Fed. Like he pulled out his badge or whatever, and he was like, "No, I'm undercover or whatever." Like, stop questioning me. And so 1 out of 4, and there was nobody there. And the way the mainstream media spun this, of course, was Trump's Trump's influence is waning or something because he's going to get people to go to this. Of course, if people had gone to this, it would have been some terrorist insurrection.
But
and
he
the
told
end
them
of
not to
democracy.
go.
Yeah,
So
I mean, isn't
really
that
his
good
influence is-
influence?
Right.
Yeah.
His waning influence convinced everybody not to go to a thing that, I mean, if it was a Trump rally, they would have been there, and he would have been able to, like, people still flood to his events that he's actually at, but this thing that was staged as a Trump rally, nobody went to. But
So
it's
it looked
because
like
of
a
Trump's
Biden
waning
rally.
influence.
4 people standing around.
Yeah, 4 feds
people and
standing around.
25% feds at least.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Biden rally.
Yep. So that's fun.
All right. Well, that's about all I've got.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
Okay.
For the show I
I've
wasn't
got
supposed to be
plenty,
on.
but they can hear the rest of mine on my episode tomorrow called White Hot Fed Boy Fall, and Chris Rock is literally, I don't remember what it was, the title was, Chris Rock is literally promoting insanity or something like that. So sneak peeks here, and check out the rest tomorrow.
Yeah, for part 2 of Electric Libertyland this week will be airing on The System Is Down.
Also lacking
And,
Brian McWilliams.
Part 3 will be airing on Rico's podcast. Rico, what's the name of your podcast?
I don't remember. I think it's called The Boring
Basement
Show.
Lawyers. Basement
Yeah,
Lawyer
Basement
podcast.
Lawyers are us. Yeah, The Boring Show. We'll see if Brian's there to grace us with his witty.
Oh yeah, what's going to
witticisms.
happen to the Boring podcast? The
I don't know.
BOHRING. By the way, I don't know. I like the old name better. That's just my opinion. I know my opinion.
Well, we had to fit Howie in there somehow.
I assumed you guys changed the name from Bravo and Beer to, you were like, well, nobody's listening. They assume it's boring because it's got like Bravo in there. Nobody really cares about Bravo. So let's change it to the Boring Podcast. Maybe that'll
So
help.
then they know it's boring.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And still no one listens. So
They don't have
you
to
know,
speculate.
We're staying on brand. We didn't change
So
anything.
it all worked out. While we're promoting other podcasts, check out the Second Print Comics podcast, which is not fucking boring at all. It is a blast. And this week we look at a crazy, crazy, crazy story involving Black Panther joining the Fantastic Four, jumping through the the multiverse, fighting Marvel zombies. It is freaking wild. That is hosted by myself and Remzo Martinez every single Wednesday. The Second Print Comics podcast. Check it out. Who else has a podcast to promote? Anyone? Can we call anyone in? That's enough. All right.
My podcast.
Jordan will be home from school soon. I'll ask him if he has a podcast.
All right, I'm sure he will by the end of the school day. So all right. That being said, let's hope question mark whether Brian McWilliams will recover from the Zeta variant by next week to bring you more Electric Libertyland fun. But until then, don't forget to always stay plugged in to Liberty.